Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Conroy, an alcoholic. I did make it, which was pretty weird. I was working. I couldn't get off work, so I had to I booked a late flight, and Don had called me, and he goes, "Have you seen the flights?" I said, "What's the matter with the flights?" He said, "They're all delayed. There's wind all over the place." So I looked on the website, and all the flights were delayed, so I got off work early, went over to the airport, and put my name on a standby list so I could get here on time. My flight, I don't think, still hasn't even left San Diego. So, and then poor Kevin, poor guy. I love being sober. I like coming out here. Let me tell you a goofy story. Years ago, when I first got sober, we were talking when two people got the cake. Don goes, "Nobody ever gets sober during the holiday season." My sobriety date is January 1st of 1989. I took my last drink on New Year's Eve at 11:30. 1988. I didn't know it was my last drink, but thank God it was. And but I forget what I was going to talk about. Oh, Las Vegas. There was a guy when I got sober. There's a couple of people here I know from San Diego. So I'm not from San Diego, if you haven't figured that out yet. I was born and raised in Boston, so I moved to San Diego drunk, little over 18 years ago, and I lasted on the streets. I lived on the streets for about 6 weeks in San Diego, and I remember when I first got sober, there was a guy named Ron Wynn who passed away several years ago. And every Thanksgiving, he used to say, "Hey, would you like to go to Vegas with me for Thanksgiving?" I go, I don't think so. You know, like when somebody would ask me something like, somebody would ask me how I'm doing, and I had no idea how to answer that. If somebody said, "You want to go to Vegas with me?" all I heard is, "You want to have sex with me in Las Vegas," right? This is where my head was. But no, you know. So every year he used to say, "Would you like to go to Vegas with me for Thanksgiving?" I said, "No." And then this one year somebody said, Ron is in the hospital in Las Vegas. I said, "What happened?" He said, "He collapsed." He said, "He collapsed where?" He says, "He goes to the Roundup in Las Vegas every year." He goes, "You're kidding." So I came out here and visited him. I said, "Ron, you just wanted me to come out here and go to the Roundup?" He says, "Yeah, I know you didn't have any family or anything like that. You weren't connected at all with anybody in San Diego. I thought you might like to come out here and celebrate sobriety out here in Las Vegas." And I was floored. I was shocked by it. Ron died shortly after that, and for the next 7 or 8 years, I made a trek out to Las Vegas every Thanksgiving for the Roundup, and it was really like Don was saying, it really helped me connect outside of my little comfort zone in San Diego with sobriety. I got to take the jacket and tie off. I got to wear it because everybody wants us to wear it to the meeting. They don't say you have to keep it on. Thank God, you know. But I love sobriety so much, and I couldn't say that when I was newly sober. I couldn't say that for the first couple of years of sobriety. I didn't like AA, didn't like people in AA, didn't like nothing. I am the sit in the back row with my arms crossed going like, "Yeah, you people are full of it," like nasty. John probably saw me when I was newly sober, and I was just an angry little craphead, scared to death of the world. I didn't know what fear was. I remember the first time I ever heard somebody talk about fear from a podium. It was like the first time I ever identified with another alcoholic talking about the way I was feeling. I was probably a year and a half sober. Absolutely, this guy was a motivational speaker for a big company, so he knew how to talk, for one thing. And most speakers, probably myself included, we can't put a sentence together. We can't get a thought and carry it to the end, so you people will be going, "What did he say? What did he say?" Well, he didn't finish it, you know. And I do that a lot, so don't worry about it if you think you're not hearing me. I'm just like not finishing my thought, going quickly on to the next one. But I heard this guy talking about fear, and it came right from his gut, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's me, fear. I didn't like being in AA. I didn't like it. I walk into a meeting just on time and get to that seat that was the last one open just so I could sit there. And as soon as it was keep coming back, it works. Bye, see ya, I'm out of there. Scared to death, sober. I was the same way drinking. I used to have to sit in my house and get drunk before I went out to a bar. You know, I would sit there, I would I used to live in I lived in an Italian neighborhood in Boston called the North End. I'm not Italian, and they didn't like me. So I never fit in. I never fit in anywhere. But I'd sit at my house and I'd listen to Willie Nelson. I was really into Willie Nelson then. This is 20 years ago. And he had an album called The Red-Headed Stranger from Blue Rock, Montana. Jesus Christ, I just sat there and I would identify with it, you know. And then I would listen to, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, and I'd be sitting there and I'd be rolling joints. I'd be taking the seeds out of all my pot, so I didn't want to have popping seeds. And I'd be rolling a joint so I could go down the street, and I'd have a couple of drinks, and I'd go down to the bar, and I'd walk into the bar, and it was like, everybody was already full ripping roaring, and I'd just like, oh, I'm cool. I'd walk in, and everybody knew me, and they would hand me a Beck's beer, and I'd sit down and relax. And then I would leave. I never wanted to be drunk in a bar. I never wanted to be drunk in a bar. I'm not a bartender anymore. I attended bar for years, and I hated drinking behind the bar. Wouldn't do it. You lose control. I loved being in control. I kind of liked being in control tonight. Oh, this is pretty cool. I'm making Kevin nervous. His phone kept ringing all the time. He's not coming, he's not coming, he's not coming. But Jesus, see, I'm telling you, my head just rips. And I'll calm down here. I'll come down. There's a little poem I'm going to say. I learned this poem years ago. It's an old Irish poem. It's an old kind of a goofy thing, but I kind of like it. It says, "It was the pig fair last September. The day I well remember, I was walking up and down the streets in drunken pride when my knees began to flutter and I fell down in a gutter, and a pig came up and lay down by my side. As I laid there in the gutter thinking words I could not utter, I thought I'd heard a passing lady say, 'You can tell the man who boozes by the company that he chooses,' and with that, the pig got up and walked away." That's kind of the way my life was. I didn't fit in very well. I didn't fit in very well at all. And I used to drink in a lot of black bars and Puerto Rican bars in Boston because I don't like people. And blacks and Puerto Ricans don't like redheaded Irish kids in Boston. They just didn't like us, you know. But I would just sit there and I would be fine with my beer and my shot of Absolute vodka. That was it. And they'd have the TV on and the jukebox on. It was just, they didn't want to connect with me, and I didn't want to connect with them, and I was fine. I just was connecting with my alcohol. I didn't believe I was an alcoholic. I don't think there's any alcoholics in my family. I got 5 brothers. I don't think any of them are alcoholics, no sisters. My dad died when I was 13 years old. It was my first big traumatic incident in my life. I think. Besides this time Harry Whalen broke my nose for no goddamn reason at all. He just hit me. And my dad died when I was 13 years old, and I was just delivering the papers, and I walked down the stairs, and I found him dead in bed, 5 o'clock in the morning. I saw Father Hardiman came in to give him his last rites and all that crap. And I walked downstairs, and Father Hardiman says, "Come here, Joe." And I said, "What? Dad's dead." He goes, "Don't cry. Go deliver the papers." I said, "Okay." So I didn't cry, and I went and delivered the papers. Every time I would sit in the bar looking at the mirror, drinking, I would see my dad's feet draped over the end of the bed, and I would cry. Jesus Christ, don't cry. You'll be all right. I didn't cry until I was about 15 months sober with that incident. I'll never forget that. I went to this was years ago, they had that stupid men go out into the woods and beat the drum crap going on, you know? And this guy was at a meeting. He says, "Joe, would you like to go out in the woods and beat a drum?" I said, "Sure, that sounds like fun." Woo-hoo. So I went, and I looked at this flyer, and it had it said, "Reconnect with the death of your father." I said, "Shit." So I went out to this thing to beat the drum, and I sat in this room. I thought I'd be all by myself. There was about 10 other guys that their dad died when they were kids. Next thing I know, I'm slobbering, just bawling, you know, just like, oh, Christ. And it was like an inventory that I was unwilling to take. I was like the surrender that I didn't want to do. You know, I didn't have a thing. My brothers, we sit around the house and we go, "How you doing?" "Everything's fine." You know, it's like we're dying of Conroyism. That's what I'll call it, because that's what we were dying of. You know, just the fact that we never really talked about anything at all. And when I came into AA and people would say, "Share," I say, "You crazy." There's a little pamphlet here. It's a great pamphlet. I saw it in the back of the room, and I just absolutely love it. I think I got it here. Yeah, Members' Eye View of Alcoholics Anonymous. It is the most fabulous piece of literature, I think, in AA, besides the big book, besides the 12 and 12, besides the Language of the Heart, and AA Comes of Age. I'm actually a literature nut. But this thing, if you're new, and this book, this is big. They call it a big book. You know, when I got here, I had never read a book in my life, literally. I got here at 33 years old, and I never finished a book. And I couldn't barely read when I got here. And there's a bunch of guys around San Diego that would actually take these things and highlight them and pass them out to newcomers. "How'd you know I was new? Just shut up and read it, kid." You know? And there's one little paragraph, and I absolutely opened it to the same page. It says, "I'm personally convinced that the basic search of every human being from the cradle to the grave is to find at least one other human being before he can stand completely naked, stripped of all pretense or defense, and trust that person not to hurt him. Because that other person has stripped himself naked too. This lifelong search can begin to end with the first AA encounter." I don't know when I read that. It was long after I got sober, and I thought I was missing something in Alcoholics Anonymous. When I tell you I came in, I sat in the back of the room, my arms crossed, said, "Yeah, BS, you people are full of it." I didn't get the fellowship of the Spirit. I didn't get it. I didn't have a sponsor. I didn't read the book. I didn't go to a meeting every day. I didn't do any of that stuff. Didn't do any of that stuff, and I was missing what they call the fellowship. The fellowship is weird. It's weird. It's different all over the place. You guys sing How It Works. I mean, you sing How It Works. You sing that birthday song different. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, they sing it different. You know, they cut it off at the end. And I go, and in San Diego, I says, I wish they would cut it off at the end. It goes on and keep coming back and call your sponsor and call your mother and call everybody. You know, balance your checkbook. Yay! You know, it's like, Jesus, shut up. You know, it's just, it goes on and on and on. And I would sit in meetings and absolutely hate it. And I first started going to meetings in Long Beach, right? There was a guy up there called Marty Leahy who passed away years ago. I would come in the meeting, put my key down, go out and smoke, come to the meeting, meeting was over, I'd be out the door. Marty would bounce up to me, happy, joyous, and free. Happiest man I think I ever saw in my life, just happy. Wanted to hug everybody. I'm like, get the fuck away from me, I want to go. He says, Joe, would you like to go to Millie's with us? For what? We go down there for lunch, for dinner afterwards. Everybody goes. There's a nice little fellowship after me. I said, sure, I'd love to go. Where is it? He'd tell me where it was. I would get my '63 Ford Falcon station wagon, and I would drive down to Millie's, and I would stand far enough away so I could see who was going in, but not far enough so you could see me standing there. And I would see Don, just using your name. Didn't like Don. Don shares the same crap every time at every meeting. I'm sick of hearing him. I would see John. There goes John. Oh, this crap. I got to listen to this. There are all these people that are at the meeting that I didn't like. My head was busy, very, very busy when I was a newcomer. So I would sit there and I go, I'm not going. I would get back in the car and I would go to a bar. And I didn't drink. I was drinking Coca-Cola. I was at a bar. I went to a place called the Mine Shaft in Long Beach. Really beautiful place. And there was nobody there. It's early at night, right? There's nobody at this place. And I'm standing there listening to music all by myself, again, in the corner, drinking a Coke. And it was dark. All of a sudden, somebody would come up next to me, wearing a leather coat. And he'd go, I thought you were going to Millie's. What? I said, weren't you at the meeting? I said, yeah. He said, well, Marty's my sponsor. He said you were going to Millie's. Who are you? I'm Mike. I'm the manager of the joint. Wow. How you doing? Fine. Oh, yeah, bad. It was bad. So, when am I going to have a conversation with this guy? You know, so I wouldn't. Next week, I'd go to the meeting, put the key down, go have a smoke, listen to everybody, crap. Marty would bounce up to me again and again and again, over and over and over again. Joe, would you like to go to Millie's? Yeah, where is it? I told you last week, down the road, left, right, parking lot, go in there, beautiful place. Sit there, do the same crap. I would just sit there and judge every son of a bitch that was going into the Millie's. Just awful. And I hated it. I hated the way I was feeling because I wasn't connecting. Was I identifying? My head was just nuts. My head as a newcomer was like 12 men with empty beer steins, just like banging, just constantly. And I'm at a meeting and people are like, this is the greatest thing I've ever had in my life, sobriety. And I'm like, oh, Christ. So this one night, I'll never forget it, surrender again. I'll never forget this one night, Marty was saying, Joe, went through the whole ring of a ruin. Marty, would you like to go to Millie's with us? I said, Marty, I would really like to. And and it's just like weird, And I said, Marty, could you do me a favor? He said, sure, what? I said, would you walk in with me? And he went, oh, man, I'm sorry. And I said, sure. So I surrendered to Marty. And I walked into Millie's. I'd been sober about 6 months. And I sat down, and there was these stupid U-shaped booths. Marty's a brilliant man. He, gives his sponsees directions. He says, get out and let Joe sit in the middle. Oh, thank you. So I sit down. Now I'm like, it was like I was in the plane. I was in the middle seat between these two behemoths. And I got this fan blowing on me like crazy. And the guy next to me says, going to turn this off. It's cold in here. And I'm like, these guys are huge on the plane. And I'm the same way in this booth. And they gave me a menu, and I ordered a hamburger. I was newly a Californian, so I had this thick accent. I ordered a hamburger, and it was like I could hear everybody's neck go. They go, where are you from? And I'm from Boston. I said, oh, Jesus Christ, really? So they pointed to every word that ended with ah, and they made me say it. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this is fun, And then I didn't realize that they said, what about the A? They go, you guys put an R at the end of a word that ends in an A. I said, no, we don't. And we do. We put an R at the word that ends in the end of, I don't know a word that ends with A, but I can't say it now. But it was the first time in my sobriety that I felt connected to the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. What did I do? I moved to San Diego. I got to get out of here. These people were close to me. I said, Jesus, this is nuts. So I go to San Diego on my 33rd birthday, and I went to a meeting, and somebody asked me to read How It Works. 8 months sober, How It Works. And I read it. And the same kind of thing happened. All these people came up to me afterwards and said, where are you from? You're new around here, huh? Yeah, it's nice to see you. No, it's really cool. You know, but I'm a real not quick socializer. That fear that Steve C. talked about, when I heard him speak about 14 months sober from a podium, when he said the word fear, it was like somebody hit me in the gut. Fear. Fear. Stand before somebody completely naked, stripped of all pretense and defense. I was full of pretense and defense for a long time in Alcoholics Anonymous. I took that same scared kid that used to drink, to go to bars to drink, into AA. I used to just come in here and sit down and just hate it. Just hate it. When I first met Mike Finch, when it was really, really strange, Mike had just gotten diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. This was, well, he's been dead 6 years, so this must have been, 10 years ago or something? Yeah, hello, I'm going to tell you a little story and it'll make sense. 10 years ago, on January 1st, 1997, January 1st, I was diagnosed with AIDS. And I didn't know I was HIV positive. It was just like I had been sick for a period of time and didn't know it. And I got diagnosed with AIDS, and it was awful. It was really, really awful at that time. And I was very, very sick. But I was 8 years sober, and I've been in AA, and I've been like mimicking and puppeting everything I ever heard, and I would read the book, and I would quote verse and page and all this bullshit that happens in AA that, oh, it's not on that page, it doesn't say that, you missed the comma when you said that. And I would do all that, would just critique everybody like a boob that I was. 8 years sober, I got diagnosed with this hideous disease, and I was like, for the first time, I think I was rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence that Bill Wilson talks about. I was rocketed right into the here and now. I wanted to live so much at that point in my time that I would have done and started to do anything. I started to bare my soul about Joe, not about what I think you want to hear, about the seemingly hopeless state of this mind and this body. And I'm telling you, this is a seemingly hopeless state. The main problem with the alcoholic centers in his mind. If you're new, please get that. If you don't hear anything tonight, if some boob coming in the door said, it's really nice to see you, and you go, I don't want to see anybody, trust me, you can keep doing that. But the main problem with the alcoholic centers in the mind, everything that is my problem and I don't share about with somebody else becomes a huge, unmanageable problem. And because of that sort of stuff, my life I'm so powerless over it. And I remember that when I got diagnosed with that disease, I just said, I'm done. I called my sponsor. I said, Buzz, I'm dying. He goes, oh, and I told him, what am I going to do? He says, you're taking a cake Friday night at the men's meeting. I said, I can't do that. I'm dying over here. He says, Friday night at the men's meeting, you're taking a cake. And I took a cake Friday night at the men's meeting. And it was traumatic. It's like I could make it really grandiose, and it was, and I looked hideous, and I was terrible. But I surrendered to the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 8 years sober. I really did, and I told him, I says, I'm actually got diagnosed with a hideous disease. I'm really afraid. And then I started talking about Joe. I started talking about this little secret I had that I was gay, and I didn't want anybody to not love me and all that sort of shit. And it was such a paradox that happened in my life because I stripped myself of the pretense and defense that I was carrying all my life. And the one thing that I wanted all my life was just to be myself, started happening when I started sharing who and what I was. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense that AA works that simple, but it's like when I hold on to my old ideas, I'm bound by them. If I cling to these things, I'm bound to them, and I can't move forward. I can't grow. I can't grow up. That's the only real thing that I think Alcoholics Anonymous really does for us. It helps us grow up, because we are emotionally sensitive, childish, and grandiose. It says that in the 12 and 12. It's nothing profound that I say. Emotionally sensitive, the same craphead that gave me this pamphlet used to say that. We are emotionally sensitive, childish, and grandiose. It doesn't say that, but I'm saying it out of sequence in case anybody's going to say, it doesn't say it that way, it says it this way, okay? But I remember that's when I met Mike. Mike had just been diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, and I was at the meeting taking my cake that I didn't want to take because I didn't want to tell. And Mike was there. He had just moved to San Diego, and he didn't really know a whole bunch of people. And Mike was a huge Pacific Group whack job, and just like, he was regimented, and I'm like, flip-flops and, T-shirts, it's like, and I was off work for a long time, and Mike says, could you do me a favor? I said, what? He says, could you drive me up, just after John Cloud couldn't do it. He says, would you drive me up to the PG on Wednesday nights? I went, 2 hours to a meeting? He says, it's probably 3 or 4 because the traffic's going to be awful. I said, what time do you get home? He said, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We usually stop for dinner afterwards at McDonald's. I went, oh boy, this is a big hoofer here. This is great, So I did, and I remember driving up there, and all these guys would get in the van. It was one of these handicap vans, and we'd pick up these guys along the way, and they're all in flip-flops and tank tops and everything as they're getting in the van, right? And I'm driving, I'm not paying any attention to it. And as they're getting out of the van, they're all in suits and ties. They would all bring their clothes and they would dress up. And I would be going in my shirt and my shorts, and they'd go, aren't you dressing up? I said, for what? He says, this is the Pacific Group. Yeah? But they're going to talk about you. It's okay. It's going to be all right. And I would go in, and nobody talked about me. He says, how you doing? It's good to see you here. How's Mike doing? And Mike would go up there, and Clancy would kiss him on the top of the head. Mike was made. He was a made man. He was a bada bing. He said, Clancy kissed me on the top of the head. I don't know what to do, But the best part of the ride was going home. Everybody's tired. They're all whacked out. They're tired. They start crashing, I thought. And me and Mike would start talking. And we started talking about living with a disease that was killing us. And I thought everybody was asleep, but they were listening to what we were saying. We were able to, he understood and I understood how we both felt about what was happening in our life. Mike was in worse shape than I was. He had a really bad disease, but it didn't stop either of us from being honest. It didn't stop either of us from stripping our pretense and defense and crying and going, this really hurts. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what? I'm afraid. What are you afraid of? I don't know. I'm afraid because we have these visions of what it's like to die. We have visions of what it's like to die, but I don't think it's anything like what we think it is, because it's, I had a friend of mine just die last night. He's not really a friend, this guy I know in AA that just died of AIDS last night. He'd been sober for a long time in San Diego, and his claim to fame pissed me off that he didn't want to take any medication. He says, I'm going to beat this with meditation and spiritual stuff, and he beat it for a long time, but it got him. It got him, This guy helped an awful lot of people, and I hope those people continue to help a lot of people, because that's what we give. We give the gift. This is the gift that we're giving you a gift. If you're new, if you're not new, if you're sitting around here, you don't like AA, just get the gift and turn around and help somebody else. It's not about you being here, being sober, because I sat in the back of the row just going, oh my God, not another one, not another one. And my sponsor, I'll never forget my first sponsor, he says, why don't you shut up? What? Why don't you go to a meeting and say, God, put me in this meeting for as long as this meeting is. Just put me right here and right now so I can listen to what's being said. Because my head would just knock everything that was being said. I don't identify, I don't get it. And all of a sudden, somebody would say something, just one little thing that would just go, damn, that's the question, that's the answer to the question I couldn't ask. This one woman at La Jolla, I'll never forget this. She went on and on and on and on. On and on and on and on and on. I'm sitting there just pissed. Just, God, shut up. Just pissed. And he used to make me sit in the front row. Remember that, Eugene? Front row, second one in, he'd sit at the end. I'm sitting on the end. I like shaking people's hands. Sit on the end. I don't care. And I said, sit there. And this woman went on. And I don't even know who she is. I don't even remember. And she just aggravated me because she just went on and on and on. And at the end, she says, I don't know if I helped anybody in here. And I said, no, you didn't. And he said, shut up. I'm like, he said, shut up. And then she said, I struggled with the concept of God for a long time. And I was thinking I was struggling with the concept of God because I was born and raised Catholic, very Catholic. My gosh darn mother goes to Mass every day and prays for my soul. You go to Mass, Joe? No. Why don't you go to Mass? No. So I had this concept of God, of being the Catholic Church. And then this woman said she struggled with this for so long that it was really bothering her. And then she heard a speaker say one night that the closest you can get to God is in the search for God. And I was floored. I was floored by how simple that phrase was for me. I don't know if it's simple for anybody else, but for me it was like, damn, I don't have to find it. I don't have to dress up and be something other than myself. And I stopped. Right there and then. And I just said, the search is pissa. The search is just great. I remember I started sponsoring this guy he started this huge church up in Culver City called the Agape. The Agape is a religious science church, and it's really fluffy, and they're a huge congregation. He helped start this thing, a little Jewish guy. And I was floored, man. I'm going, you're a Jew. What are you starting a religious science church? He says, well, it's a non-denominational. And I was like, didn't really know what anything was at the time. And I'm sponsoring him, but he intimidated me because he had God in his life. He called me up one day wanting to drink. I said, meet me down at Twiggs, a little coffee shop around the street from me. And we went and got a coffee, and he goes, let's get in the car and go somewhere. I said, God help me, I don't know what to do with this whack job. And we went down to Balboa Park, to the Rose Garden, Balboa Park, and we're sitting there in the Rose Garden. And I said, Barry, I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to do. You're intimidating me because you're spiritual. But I'm dying over here. I said, did you ever smell roses? Did you ever stop and smell the roses? He went, what? That's a cliche. I said, did you ever smell the roses? No, I never did either. So he said, let's go smell the roses. And we literally, let's pick a red rose. Whoa, take one more. I took these 3 deep breaths smelling the rose, and I said, what's it smell like? And we described what it smelled like. Then we went to the yellow rose, we went to the pink rose, went to the lavender rose, and they all smelled different. It was the first time in my life that I stopped and smelled the roses. First time, and the two of us were sitting there going, man, this is pretty cool. And we sat there and we exposed ourselves about what our fears were at the time. And Barry never took a drink. I don't know if he moved out of town, but it was just, for me, it was like the people that I sponsor help me much more than I help them. I know that. They're put in my life, I don't know why. Some of them are the biggest boobs and the biggest whack jobs I've ever met in my entire life. And I've got it really all together, you know what I mean? And they're like, and all of a sudden, their problem is something that I have to deal with. And I have to find an answer for something, and we do it by talking, one alcoholic talking with another alcoholic about the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body that's going on at the time. What a gift. What an absolute gift. I get so busy outside of AA that I don't have time for AA sometimes. And then this I spoke at a meeting on Sunday, on Christmas Eve, and this other guy that I sponsored got 9 years of sobriety that doesn't go to meetings anymore because he doesn't connect with anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I said, well, let's go tonight if you want to go with me. You're going to hear my same stupid story again if you want. And we went up there, and I said, there's one thing I know about Alcoholics Anonymous, you got to go to meetings. That's like 2 things I'm giving you tonight if you're new. Just go to meetings. You're going to hate them if you're new. I don't know how many people are new here. I feel bad for coming in late, but when I first got sober, I didn't stand up and introduce myself. I didn't do it. I bought my 30-day, my 60-day, and my 90-day token. I bought it from some stupid thing, and because I saw everybody with those things hanging off their keys, and I really wanted to be part of AA. And I didn't even stand up and say I was a newcomer at all. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. But I'll tell you what, if you do that, if you stand up and say you're a newcomer, like Don was saying, what happens is some whack job that's on the other side of the room whose sponsor says, you need to meet a couple of newcomers tonight. When they stand up and give them your name, I want you to go over and shake their hand and welcome to the meeting. And you're standing there scared to death, and all of a sudden this boob like Don comes up and goes, hi, Jimmy, how you doing? It's nice to see you. Jesus Christ, how did he know my name? You forgot that an hour ago you stood up and said you were a newcomer, and you're like really happy to be here. He's like, oh, whoa, But it's really, and all of a sudden you got these people that are actually just following this little routine, this ritual of Alcoholics Anonymous. The word ritual is great. It's the word spiritual. The root of it is ritual, and that's what AA is. It's a ritual. It's a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, hope with one another, so that they can recover from this seemingly hopeless state. The word seemingly is like what Clancy calls the perception problem we have around here, this disease. Seemingly is like, oh, this is awful. I had this people calling in sick all week, and I'm a boss. I don't like being a boss, but I'm the boss. And they call in sick, and it's so pathetic. They call, they don't have to actually speak to me. They have to call and leave a message. I don't get it. I remember when I was not the boss, it would be a beautiful day, and I would call up, I'd say, Janice, it's a beautiful day, I ain't coming in. And the next day she would go, thank you for being honest. But Jesus Christ, the stories I hear. The stories I hear. It's just, and the women are the worst. They go on and really, really in depth. I'm going, holy Christ, I didn't want to hear that. And I'm like, Jesus. It was awful, and this poor guy this morning, I get in, he did the same thing. I got a stomach virus. I just don't think I'm going to make it for the rest of the week. I don't care. I was pissed. And I vented. I was telling Don, I vented at one of the secretaries. Son of a bitch, listen to this message. She said, oh, that's pathetic. I go, I have to hear this stuff all the time. I was never like that, trust me. Oh, yeah, I can't imagine what I sounded like when I was really sick. I don't know why I brought that up. But I love being sober. I really, really do, and it's just, it happens so slowly in AA. If you're coming in here, there's a lot of people, coming in here at 12 and 13 and, Jesus, I'm going, man. And, I'm sponsoring guys that are 21 and 22 with a couple years of sobriety, and they want 20 years. Oh, they want it all. And they want the car, and they want the job, and they want the stuff. I go, Christ sakes, why'd you work the steps? Oh my God, it takes so long to do that. I can't do that. And I'm telling you, it's like there must come a day, it seems to me, when every alcoholic in and out of AA finally sits down in the presence of his enemies. When he does, he will be amazed to discover that he is attending a meeting of one himself. The day the alcoholic in AA realizes that his enemy is within, that the tigers are largely creatures of his own design and lurk in his own unconsciousness, that is the day for him, that is the day when for him AA becomes what I believe its founders meant it to be, a flight into reality. I'm telling you, you get sober and you work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and practice the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, you're going to be getting a flight into reality. It is really the best deal, I think, in town. It really, really is. Because when I couldn't work, I still hate working. I hate working. And I had my brothers, they're all like really successful. Whatever success is, I don't know what it is. They finished college, they stayed married, they got kids, they got a house, they got stuff. I'm still renting an apartment downtown San Diego. I started college in 1974. I just finished it in March of this year. Whoa, I'm on a fast track, I'm telling you, But I finished it. What's the first thing I do? I go into my boss. I said, I finished college. Can you give me a raise? And he said, your college degree is going to be really good for your career, but it's not going to help you with any kind of money in this place. You got to be kidding me. So from that point on, I've been looking for work. And it's really funny. I'm a cut and run. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll show you, I'll quit. Been that way all my life. And I've been looking for work. I look at John out here, and he's working out here in Las Vegas, and I go, Jesus, John can do it. I flew to Denver for an interview, and I had this interview, and I had a conversation with a man that didn't intimidate me for the first time. He was the president of this company, and we're sitting there talking, and I realized, I said, I don't have the skills that you're really looking for. And he goes, I know. He says, I hope we haven't wasted your time. I said, no, it's just been a tremendous experience, because I expect you to hire me if I show up. That's what I expect. But when I get up there and I have like an informed decision happening right in front of me, I go, oh my God, this guy is asking me to do this. I don't have those skills. I go, I don't have those skills. I want those skills. I want them because he goes, if you had them, it'd make you really a valuable person. I go, wow. And I walk out of there going, wow, what a great experience. I didn't walk out of there feeling like a boob. I didn't feel less than. I didn't feel like I had low self-esteem, I felt like I really tried. The one thing I never wanted to do when I was a kid, one thing I never wanted to do when I was newly sober. Jesus Christ, I was trained to be a deep-sea diver, for Christ's sakes. I could make millions of dollars in the North Sea. I'm whining like this to my sponsor when I'm newly sober. He says, yeah, but you don't have a job. Why don't you go out and get a job? I said, I'm trained to be a deep-sea hot-head diver. I can make $100,000 in the summer. He says, you're not even making a dime right now. Why don't you go and get a job? He says, you're not listening to what I'm saying. So I'm at a meeting whining about him, yelling at me because I didn't have a job and I needed a job. I'm worth a lot of money. And this girl said, the place I'm working at is hiring. Would you like a job? I go, yeah, sure. What do you do? She says, I sell men's underwear over the phone. I said, what? She said, men's underwear? I'm a hard hat diver. I'm a tough guy. So I got a job with this stupid company called International Mail. I don't know if anybody's it's not in business anymore. It's nasty stuff. Jesus. Used to sell thongs, like men's thongs. Just awful crap. It was just, I'd start at 5 o'clock in the morning, they call in from Philadelphia, and they're buying thongs, Oh, this is International Mail. This is Joe. How can I help you? Joe, you got a really sexy voice. And I turned, I said, I think this guy's whacking off over here. And they would say, get his credit card and let him do whatever he wants. Get a sale out of it, So I'd get it. I developed a sexier voice while I was selling these. He wanted a T-shirt. I think a nice leather jacket would go good with that T-shirt. What do you think of that? Oh, Joe, please, leather jacket. For a year and a half, two and a half years, I sold over $1 million worth of crappy underwear to whack jobs all over the country. And it helped me sit and stay for 8 hours a day. The one thing Eugene said to me, all I want you to do is get a job where you're sitting or working for 8 hours a day and you go to a meeting and you don't have time for those 8 hours to think about yourself. Okay. And I did. And it taught me how to do the things I didn't like to do. I tended bar because I didn't like to work. Tending bar is a great job. God almighty. The money that is capable to be made. And I was legit. I remember when I went back to Boston, I was talking to my sponsor. I was talking to my old boss. I went into the bar to see him, and he knew I was on the Bright. They think I'm on the Bright back there. I haven't had a drink in almost 18 goddamn years. They think I'm on the Bright. Joe was going, Joe, you're the only bartender that ever worked for me that never took from the tilt. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, everybody robs me blind in here. I said, I could have robbed you blind? I was like hustling people for tips. I could have just robbed you blind. And I was like, didn't get it. I didn't get it, have all that cash. They said, we loved when you were on the busy shifts because we knew that the money was going to be ours. And I didn't know. And I remember people used to like, Joe, we need to get an 8-ball. And I go, let me see how many tips I can make tonight. I would turn on the charm. I'd be throwing the money into the tip jar. Okay, you done? Pay your bill. I got another 10 over here. Boom, I'll never forget that night. It was just crazy. But I don't do that anymore. Being sober is just so much fun. It really, really is. And if you're new, you're probably going, no, it ain't. No, it ain't. I'm going to another stupid meeting in a stupid white van. Yeah, this is lots of fun, happy, joyous, and miserable. And then I'm telling you, all of a sudden something happens. You cross the line, and you stop being this little bit of a taker, this little bit of a, let me take some more coffee, some cookies, let me take a little bit more out of AA, and you start giving away. You start turning around to some newcomer, and that's the best way to do it. You turn to some newcomer and say, hey, I saw you at a meeting last night. It's really good to see you again here. And all of a sudden, there's two people that are just like scared to death. For a moment, they're not. They look each other in the eye, and one of them will say, thanks, maybe. Or he'll just look down at his feet and go, thanks. Something happens. And I think that's the sunlight of the Spirit. I think that's what Bill Wilson calls the language of the heart. The language of the heart. One alcoholic talking and really sitting down and experiencing what it's like to be and live sober. I didn't do it for a long time. And I'll tell you what, when I got diagnosed with that other disease, and from that point to this, my life was just taken off into directions that are just that are full of joy. The first line in the 12, I don't know what I'm looking for. The first line in the 12 and 12, and the 12th step in the 12 and 12 says, joy of living is our code. Joy of living is our code. I didn't know what the word joy really meant. I always associated joy with Christmas, and I don't like Christmas. And I had a revelation this Christmas. I don't like the Christmas season. I love Christmas Day. I go up to Debbie G's house in Carlsbad. She has this meeting on Christmas morning with ham and food and fellowship, and it starts me off with just a just a shot in the arm. Just a shot in the arm. And I sat at that meeting that morning, that last Sunday, last Christmas, and I said, I realize now that I don't like the season. And I don't like the season because it's so much out of the moment. It's so much out of the one day at a time thing. And put me right here in the right here and the right now, The moment is the best thing you can ever live. If you're new, if you're not so new, if you're sitting around here and you're blue and you go, oh my God, just getting right here in the moment, right here in the right now it'll change your life. It'll change your life, This poor little guy that I'm sponsoring now with 16 months of sobriety is 22 years old, and he's just, he's got a story and a half. At 22 years, I'm going, my God, maybe someday you're going to be able to share your story with somebody. Because he goes, Joe, I'm just not getting it. And I love being in the car with these guys, and I ain't driving. We went up to Carlsbad, up to another meeting. Carlsbad from us is about 45 minutes, maybe an hour if there's traffic. And just being in the car, I don't know what happens to me. If I'm at home, I don't like being on the phone. Ever since I worked on that, selling the underwear stuff, I just don't like it, I want to get off the phone really quick. But I'm in the car, something happens. I don't know what it is about getting in the car. There's just something about an alcoholic in a car. We're confined for one thing. You can't get anywhere. You can't go anywhere for one thing. And guys are really weird anyway. Guys don't like to look at one another. Guys don't they like to walk side by side and, talk shop. And we're in the car, we're talking, and he's talking about, Joe, I don't know if I'm ever going to get it. I go, get what? Get what you have. I said, what do I have? He goes, what's it like to be 18 years sober? I said, I don't know. I'm not there yet. He says, but you're almost there. I says, no, I'm right here and I'm right now. What is there to get? Anything I've got, it took time. It took the ability to share, for one thing. That this little pamphlet talks about sharing. It talks about opening up. It talks about sharing, not from the head, from the gut, from where you're really hurting. Deep down inside, every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God, but it's covered up by this pomp, this circumstance, and this worship of other things. Pomp, circumstance, worship. Oh, Jesus Christ, my life could have been so much better. It could have been, shut up. It is what it is right now. Pomp and circumstance and worship of other things. Worship. Holy shit. I'm driving that 63 Ford Falcon station wagon. I remember I was, 3-4 months sober, wanting to drink. Like, I'm living up in Long Beach for a little bit, wanting to drink so bad. Just drink. And I look up the meeting schedule, and I see there was a meeting at the top of Palos Verdes, right? Where's Palos Verdes? I don't know. I'm from Boston. Palos Verdes. Oh, it's a hill over there. It's up there. So I get in the Ford Falcon station wagon, 63. It had a rear main seal leak, literally poured oil out of this thing, just poured it out. And I'm driving, I'm going down through Torrance, and I'm going by all these bars, and like when you're wanting to drink, the bar is like, it's reaching out, the beer signs and the water, it's just like, come in, Joe, come in. And I took a turn, and I started going up Palos Verdes Hill in the Falcon. And I'm looking at my oil light, which is getting red. And then it's going like this, and I'm seeing the blue plume of smoke coming up over the back of the car as I'm going up this hill. And Jesus, it was the story of my sobriety, because I'm just like, I'm chuckling and I can't do it. And I've got a little bit more, and so I can see it. I can see the top of the hill. And I get up to the top of the hill, and then I have to go into the parking lot of this church. And I pulled in, and it was Jaguars, and Mercedes-Benzes, and chrome and shiny, and oh, shit. And I went into the meeting, and nobody, I get there right on time. I would say nobody greeted me. It's like the greeters are gone because the meeting's just about ready to start, and nobody's greeting me. And I sit in there, and I didn't get anything. I'm just nuts. And I remember at the break, they had a break. I walked out onto this. It was at the top of this hill, and it was beautiful. And I walked out onto this deck. They had a big deck. And I saw this guy standing way in the back, and I said, well, let me see if I could talk to somebody. So I walked back to this deck, and as I walked, it was like the deck had a panoramic of L.A. at night, lights, just like, and this guy was new, and I'm standing there, and I'm going, Jesus, man. He goes, isn't this something? Yeah, isn't this something? And we just stood there, two newcomers, scared, looking at the beauty that I could have missed. I could have missed it. I could have missed it if I was just like, I'm not going. And I've never been back to that meeting since. It was 18 years ago almost. And I don't know who that guy was. All we said, isn't this beautiful? I said, yeah, this is really cool. It was just a moment. Just a moment that I've never been able to forget because it was full of what we call joy. And I think from those experiences, I've learned to live a little bit better. You know, and if you can do that, if you come in here, just get a little bit better than you were yesterday. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. You don't have to get 20 years sobriety in 2 months. You're not going to get 20 years of sobriety in 2 months. You're going to get a day of sobriety in a day. Some days are good, some days are bad. You know, some moments are horrendous. But you get it out of here. You know, don't come into meetings and puke all over the meeting and then go out and have a smoke. You want to come into a meeting and puke all over a meeting, sit down and listen for the solution. Jesus, I would watch that. I would watch that for a long time when I was newly sober. I don't think I've ever really left a meeting, with the exception of once when I was in New York City with Don. We went to a meeting at Perry Street, and Don sitting there going, this is crazy. And you know, it's like New York meetings are very, very different. And he just wanted to get out. This is ridiculous. We got to get out of here. And it was bad. You know, there was wrist slashes sharing, and they were talking about how to do it. And I was like, and then we left, and the 4 or 5 of them left the meeting, and I was like, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to let them suffer, because I had the most time. What a bunch of crap, huh? And I had to leave. I couldn't take it anymore. But I don't leave a meeting. I don't leave a meeting. You know, I tell my guys, sit down, shut up, and listen. What a great line, huh? Sit down, shut up, and listen. You're not being nice to me. Shut up. You know, just listen. Just listen for the message, your message. Identify. You're not going to identify with everybody. You're only going to identify with one other person. One other person that's going to be able to identify with you. And if you help that person with the problem that they're having that they probably don't even know about, that person's going to help somebody else with the problem. And it just goes on. It's just amazing to watch a group of people that we call Alcoholics Anonymous. That's all it is. It's just a group of people that are sharing their experience, strength, and hope. We share in a general way what we were like, what happened, and what we are like now. There's been an awful lot of people, when I hear them talk about, they share in a general way what it is like, what happened, and what it's like now. Totally different scenario if you share about it. It is the material side of sobriety. The we is the spiritual side of sobriety. I really, really believe that when I share what I'm like, what happened, and what I'm like now. Money, power, and prestige, you'll never have enough of it. You can't get enough of it. It doesn't make any difference. What you have right here and right now is what God given you. It's just to get from one point to the next point. The stuff will come and go. The stuff is never big enough. It's never good enough. It's never here long enough. It's never bad enough. It's just that you can find a reason for the stuff to fall apart. The spirit, your soul, if you get your soul back in Alcoholics Anonymous and you start sharing that with another person, God damn, what a gift. What a gift to be able to give somebody the ability just to say, I don't like being sober. You want to talk about it? Yeah. It just goes on, and then you start sharing. Let me tell you what it was like when I was your age, sober. And they go, you're you? You got it all together. I got nothing. I got nothing you don't have. All I got is just a little bit more time, a lot more experience. The experience is the thing. You know, if you can share the experience of what it's like to be sober, what you like living happy, joyous, and free, God, that's a gift. And I've just seen people not getting it. I was another guy I sponsor. He was going down to Mexico. A friend of his down there says, will you bring me 2 cases of the $2 Chuck from Trader Joe's? He said, sure, I will. 6 months sober, he got the 2 cases of $2 Chuck, put them in the garage to put in the truck, went in the house, thought about one of those bottles of wine, went out there and looked at it to make sure there was 2 cases. Yeah, there's 12 bottles, and then he went back in the house, and he went back out, and he grabbed a bottle of wine, and he started drinking it. Tearing himself up. Alcoholism, cunning, baffling, and powerful. I don't know why I haven't taken a drink. I do know why, because I love being sober. The moment I took my last drink was New Year's Eve, 1988. 1988, 11:30 at night. It was a stupid bottle of Miller Lite. A stupid bottle of Miller Lite. I put it down in the bar. It still had a 1/4 ounce left or whatever. And I didn't know it was my last drink. Dick D, 6 weeks earlier back in Boston, said, Joe, there'll come a time, because he was the only sober person that I really knew. He said, I told him I had a problem with alcohol. And he said, there'll come a time if you're done with the way you're feeling and you ask some power greater than yourself for help, you'll never have to take another drink as long as you live. That was the thing that got me to move from Boston, because I had uncovered my alcoholism to an alcoholic. You can always uncover it to somebody you're drinking with, and they'll just deny it. Tell an alcoholic, somebody who's practicing the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, that you've got a problem with alcohol, and all they want to do is help you with that problem, help you find a solution to that problem. And I think the solution is God. I don't know. My God is just a God. My God is just something that's right here and right now. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't think this deal would work, please try it. If you don't think it works, please try it. Don't leave AAA unless you really give it the try. The big book puts tries in a little italicized. You always see the word try, it's a little italicized thing. Try it. And if you don't think God will help him, just ask. Just ask. The time I asked Marty for help, Marty, would you walk in with me, was probably the first understanding of the God that I have today. Because deep down inside every man, woman, child is the fundamental idea of God, the pomp and the circumstances, the fear that I lived with all my life. The fear that I lived with all my life. And I said, Marty, will you walk in with me? He said, sure. And I've been doing that ever since. When Bob asked me to come out here again, I thought I'd be able to just leave work and get out here and be fine. But, I got here. And it's the best thing that I could have done for myself today, because I love sharing with another alcoholic. I don't know how many people are in here. That doesn't make any difference to me. There could be one person, because all I know is just one other person needs to hear my story. Maybe. And if it doesn't need to hear my story, it needed to hear somebody else's story out there. It needed to have somebody shake their hand and say, it's good to see you, please come back. So please, if you don't think it'll work, try it. If you don't believe God will help, all you got to do is ask. Peace.